Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the second installment of The Weekly Hero, the show I do here once a week, talking about all things, recapping the biggest news from the world of comic book movies of the past week, and also talking about all the comic book TV shows that came up last week, and of course, crowning one episode of comic book movie television the best of the week. Last week, it was the episode of Arrow won the best of the week. Let's see what takes it this week. Now, I am very pleased today that I am joined by a good buddy of mine. He is a Olympic gold medalist. He's a multiple medalist at the Olympics. He is continuing to swim competitively, training for the next Olympics, and he is an undefeated participant in the movie Trivia Showdown, of course, and that is Cody Miller. He's joining me today to talk about all stuff comic books. Now, here's how today's going to go. First of all, Cody and I are going to talk about recapping the movie news, the comic book movie news from the past week. We got some big items we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the television shows this week. And then I'm going to throw it open to you guys who are watching live. How do you get a live question on the show? It's simple. Just email me or tweet to me, I should say, at John Campea. Just simply start out a tweet and put at John Campea. Don't send it in yet because we're not ready for it yet. I'll have you guys send that in to me a little bit later. I'll let you know when it's time to do that. Now, I'm going to let you know, I'm going to do something here that I've never done before on any of my shows, which is this. I do this show at 1 p.m. and I stream it live at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on Friday. Unfortunately, Cody, being an Olympian, he has training that he had to do at this time. He's actually swimming in a pool somewhere right now. So he and I hopped online a little bit earlier today to record this next chunk of the show, which is us talking about the previous week's news. It runs for about 30 minutes. I'm going to play you that part. So that's going to be a little bit pre-recorded. As soon as that's done, I'm back on here live and we're going to take the live questions and maybe you will see your tweet pop up here on the screen. So if you guys are ready, here, let's jump into it. Here's me and Cody Miller starting off by recapping the biggest comic book movie news of the past week. Check it out. And I am not alone today. Today, I am very pleased to be joined by, on one hand, sure, on a minor note, he is a multiple Olympic medalist. He's, of course, an Olympic gold medalist. But more importantly, he is an undefeated competitor in the movie Trivia Showdown. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to be joined by Cody Miller all the way over in Indiana, right?
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me, John. This is awesome. Big fan, huge movie fan, obviously, a total nerd. So this is stuff that's right up my alley, and I'm just excited to be on the show with you.
Well, you know what? I'll be honest. I remember the first time when I was still over at Collider and we had you coming in. I was super excited because, you know, how often you get to meet an Olympic gold medalist. But when you came in, we actually started talking movies. Yeah, I was like, oh my God, like this guy really knows his movies. And then you go in and compete against JTE. Who is tearing it up right now.
He's so good right now. He's killing it right now.
He is completely on fire right now. And you beat him. Final question. And I remember I was calling that match.
It was a nail biter.
And look, I know there were some people who were saying at the time that were going, oh, it's just because they had a celebrity guy in, they let him win. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't give a flying F about Collider. I'm not there anymore. And I can tell you straight up, that was legit as hell. That was absolutely legit, that win. And they just impressed everybody. So I'm super excited that you're here doing this with me today. We're going to talk about, of course, some superhero movies, and we're going to get started with this particular topic. Now, of course, Justice League has now played for a couple of audiences in some theaters. There have been a couple of screenings. Couple of interesting things, though. They still have not moved that review embargo date. As of right now, the review embargo date for Justice League is literally 24 hours before the movie hits theaters. Right now, Warner Brothers is not allowing critics of any kind to kind of let people know about the film or tell about their reactions to it. Now, there was a screening for it. A number of people, I wasn't at that screening. I'm going to another screening. So I was not at the advanced screening that they've already had. I'm going to another one next week. So, but they have barred anybody from even sharing their social media reactions to this. Interesting thing. They showed 30 minutes of the film to a small group of Chinese journalists, apparently, none of whom I've ever heard of, but to them apparently, and they let those Chinese journalists tweet their reactions to the first 30 minutes. they've showed it to a small group here in Los Angeles and are not allowing them to put out social media reviews. They still haven't moved that embargo date. I still believe they will move that embargo date because remember, Wonder Woman had an embargo date the day before the movie came out, and then they moved it up a few days to let this positive word of mouth get out there. So let me ask you this, Cody. You see all this playing out. You know that the movie's been seen. There are a few people who've seen the movie. Does it make you as an audience member at all nervous about the fact that they haven't moved that review embargo date yet, that they're not letting these journalists talk online? Or do you think, hey, look, we're still 2 weeks seems like nothing, but really, we're 2 full weeks away from the movie. Do you see this? Do you think, hey, nothing to worry about yet at this point? What do you think?
Right. Well, so I think the first thing that comes to mind is I don't see any reason for them not to allow social media posts, right? Like that doesn't seem like it should be that big a deal, but I still believe that the movie is going to be good. And the only realistic, logical reason I think that they haven't moved the embargo yet. I kind of think they're going to move the embargo in the future. What I think that they're doing right now is Thor Ragnarok is opening up this weekend. I'm going to go see it tonight. I know you've seen it like 30 times, John, but like people like us are going to go see it tonight. And it has so much positivity going for it, and that's the only thing everyone is talking about right now. And I think that if they move the embargo now, I don't think they would get the benefit of the marketing and the awareness that they would in a week from now. So I'm still hoping, I still think the movie's going to be good, and I'm still hoping that they do move that embargo up a little bit sooner, because I think, if they do it in a week, so say they release it next weekend or even like a few days out, that then shows confidence. Like I remember they bumped the Wonder Woman embargo up a few days earlier. And then the second they moved that embargo from 24 hours before to a few days before, or maybe it was even a week before, everyone was like, okay, that means it's good.
It was about 4 days before. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So but that was a sign of, hey, this is good. Like this shows confidence. And I think that they're waiting for the storm of the positivity of Thor Ragnarok to just kind of wither down a little bit. 2 weeks is a lot of time. Not a ton of time, but it's enough time where I think that, I'm really hoping that they do move that embargo. I think the movie is going to be good.
And this is why you are here on this show, because you just stole exactly what my main point was going to be, which is it's Thor. It's Thor, which is not just another comic book movie. It is one of the most positively reviewed movies of the year, and it's dropping this weekend. Look, if they let those journalists, now I'm not saying that the movie's great. I haven't seen it. I can't say that yet, so I don't know. But if let's say that the journalists do have positive things to say about it, and they let them put those social media things out right now, they're going to get lost and swept away in a sea of all of this positive Thor stuff out there, and they're going to lose all the bang for it. If they wait for like 4 or 5 days, when all the buzz and hoopla, most of the people have now rushed out and seen Thor. Everybody's talked about it for a few days. They might be getting tired of talking about it now. Then you let people put out their positive social media. Then you announce that you're lifting the social media review. You're probably going to get a lot more bang for your buck on that front. So let me ask you this though, Cody, like as somebody who's a veteran of the comic book movies that you are, what are you expecting out of this movie? What are you expecting to see?
Out of Justice League?
Yeah.
Well, I think we all kind of have a pretty good idea of like the first 30 minutes is going to be them assembling the Justice League, the full team for the first time. I think the second act of the movie is they're going to introduce, the big conflict, the villain, and then the third act is them. I think that's probably when we're going to see Superman, right around the third act of the movie.
You think they're going to wait that late for it? You think they're going to wait that late?
I do. I think so. It's the cool thing is like we've seen so much of this movie for so long, yet we have very little understanding of what's actually going to happen. You know what I mean? And that is incredibly intriguing to me. Like I do think they're gonna push off Superman a little later, but the thing I'm most excited to see is him in that black suit, because we know we're going to see that. And as a huge Superman fan, like that's just it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited about that.
So you're expecting a good movie out of this?
Yes, I do think so. I think we're going to see what we've heard. I think is true. I think we're going to see a true culmination of, Zack Snyder's vision and Joss Whedon's vision. And I think together it's going to come together nicely.
I agree. I completely agree. All right. Let's move on now to the next topic. And the next topic is still staying in that Justice League DC universe. Now, earlier this week, we, of course, Henry Cavill, who I believe is a fantastic Superman, and I love Man of Steel, but Henry Cavill made some comments that got some people chirping a little bit. Basically, he said this. He made two sets of comments in the same breath. The one comment was this: hey, the DCEU movies haven't quite worked so far. That was the one thing he said on the one hand. But he followed that up by saying, but look, we made the right mistakes and we've corrected those mistakes, and Wonder Woman was our first step going in the right direction. And his overall point was, he said in that first statement, after he said, the DCU hasn't quite worked so far, he specified that by saying, we haven't given that feeling of wonder to the audience member that a viewer should have. So you've heard about this for a couple of days now, Cody. What did you make of Henry Cavill's comments? How do you interpret them?
Right. I think that people kind of, as they do nowadays, tend to blow things a little bit out of proportion. They take what he said in his earlier parts of his comments and they kind of twist it into saying, he's saying bad things about the DCU. The DCU. No, he's not. He's just saying the truth. Like, people like us have liked the previous DCU movies, but they haven't been universally loved. And I love the way that you describe that feeling, that feeling you get when everyone is loving what you're seeing on screen. And that's what they're shooting for, and that's what they want. And he acknowledged that they hit that nail on the head with Wonder Woman, and that's what they're trying to do in the future. So, I don't think he said anything wrong. I think that dude is, as you've said before, he could be a politician. He's so well-spoken.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is a lot of people, I think, underestimate. Look, the main part of his comment was really the second part when he said, look, we made the right mistakes at the right time. And I think you make a stronger impact when you correct those mistakes and get into the right vein than you would have otherwise. And I think he's right about that. But I also think that his skill as a communicator is in this. Him saying that doesn't carry any weight or authority if he doesn't start off his statement with a position of honesty. He starts off saying something brutally honest. Hey, our earlier DCU films, and that includes his standalone Man of Steel movie. Right. He starts off his statement by saying, hey, you know what? We have struggled. By starting off with a statement of harsh honesty, I believe it gives the second half of his statement all that more punch by saying, but now we identified those mistakes, we corrected those mistakes, and we're heading in the right direction. And I think all that leads us to what could be a really good Justice League movie. Fingers crossed. Yeah. All right. Let's move on now to the next topic. Of course, the aforementioned Thor Ragnarok is opening this weekend. It opened in theaters across the nation last night. It has a ridiculously high 94% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And of course, Fandango reported that the number one comic book movie of the year at the box office, which is currently Spider-Man Homecoming, Fandango reports that Thor Ragnarok, for its advanced ticket sales, was outpacing Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, Spider-Man Homecoming didn't have a record-breaking opening weekend. It opened with about $117 million, which is still a great opening weekend. They're saying Thor Ragnarok is going to exceed even that. The question is, can it exceed the early projections of Thor Ragnarok, which is around the $120 million range? I think it will. We'll find out more for sure in about 24 hours. But some people are now asking the question. Some people, audiences, are seeing this thing now. They're seeing the critic ratings and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of people are asking, is this the greatest MCU movie of all time? It certainly ranks right up there as far as a Rotten Tomato and a Metascore kind of go with it. I haven't asked you yet, Cody. Did you? I know it's only been in theater for less than 24 hours. Did you have a chance to run out last night and see Thor Ragnarok?
I did not get to see it last night. A few of my friends did, and they've already said that it's in their top 5. So my expectations are pretty high, but I'm going tonight. I'm seeing it tonight.
Because, what time were you in the pool this morning?
5 a.m.
5 a.m. So, okay. Yeah. So you'll be forgiven not to rush out and see a late night screening of this thing. But look, the movie's now out. It's out. We're hearing the buzz. All the marketing is done. We've seen all the marketing, all the buzz. What do you think? What neighborhood do you think the opening weekend for Thor Ragnarok is going to fall into?
Yeah, I mean, so we know the movie's good, even though I haven't seen it yet, and it's got all that positive buzz behind it. And you said it's outpacing Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man, if I'm correct, came in right around 117 or 120 opening weekend.
Exactly. Yep.
And so it's got to be higher than that. So I honestly think it could hit 130 or probably a little over 130. If I had to put a number to it, I'm gonna go a little higher. I'm gonna say 135. I think Thor's going to come in right at 135. People that don't generally see comic book movies, I think, are really excited because they're hearing how fun this movie is. Like my mom wants to see this movie. She's going to go see this movie this weekend, and that's rare. So I think it's got a lot of goodwill going for it.
That's a good litmus test for what's the average audience going to go for when you ask will my mom want to go see this question? And that's obviously that's usually what I fall back to. But here's the best thing. And I'm actually going to do a spoiler video a little bit later today on this. So I'm not going to give much away now, but I'm going to say this because I referenced this a little bit before. This is an incredibly fun movie. But to me, without question, and I won't go into details why, I'll explain in my spoiler video later today, but to me, without question, this is the darkest movie the MCU has done, and with the most severe consequences and stakes than any other MCU movie has had. Now, I said that before, and a lot of people went, well, John, how can it be fun and funny and yet dark? I'll explain that in the video, but that's part of the brilliance that I think Taika Waititi brought to this film. All right, let's go on now to the last topic that we're going to talk about before we get to the television side of things, which is this. We've been talking about a Shazam movie for 4 years now, since The Rock came out on that stage at CinemaCon in Las Vegas, and they announced him as Black Adam, the villain of the new Shazam movie. Well, the Shazam movie never came, and then Black Adam, as it turns out, Black Adam isn't even going to be in the Shazam movie, as it turns out. He's going to have his own standalone movie. But there is a Shazam movie coming. It's going to start shooting in early 2018, so it's coming up pretty quick. And they announced their guy playing Shazam, and I don't think there's anybody who wouldn't be lying if they said that they were expecting Zachary Levi to be Shazam. I think this caught everybody completely off guard. What was your reaction to hearing the news about Zach Levi playing Shazam?
So, total honesty, I had to look up who he was. And looking through these,
You're not the only one. You're not the only one.
So I looked up his IMDb page, and the only thing that I really recognized him from was that animated movie Tangled. I'm a big fan of animated movies, and he played, the Prince Charming type character in that movie, and I thought he was great. Granted, that was an animated, voiceover acting character, but for a long time, I think a lot of people speculated that it was going to be John Cena.
Yeah, and
I actually thought it would be really cool because they casted The Rock like 30 years ago for that role, and I thought it would be cool to see The Rock and John Cena kind of go at it. But I don't think nothing against John Cena. Like, I totally love the guy. I thought he was hilarious in Trainwreck, and he had that little spot in Sisters, which is also really funny. So he's definitely becoming a better actor, but I wasn't sure if he could really carry a role, like a big superhero role like that. But anyways, now we've got this other guy, and I think a lot of people are, I think from what I've seen, people are embracing it, and we don't know what they're going for. The only thing that I really know about the character of Shazam is from playing the Injustice Gods Among Us game. Love that game, right? And so when I first saw
he dies pretty quick in that game.
He does, yeah, exactly. But he's huge. He's built like Superman. And so when I saw a picture of this guy, I was like, man, he's going to really have to bulk up. But I saw him tweet that he's already been in the gym and stuff. So, really, it's exciting. It is.
Yeah, a lot of people in the nerd community remember him from Chuck, and of course he was in Thor. He's been in Thor 2 and he's in Thor 3. He's one of the Warriors 3. He took over the role for another actor. Another actor played Thandrel in the first Thor movie, the dashing member of the Warriors 3. So he took over the role in part 2, and he plays it again in part 3. And of course he was in Chuck, and of course his voice work in Tangled. And then he was in Heroes Reborn, the reboot, which was a terrible reboot of the series. I watched like 1.5 episodes, and I'm like, I'm out. It was just badly put together. The John Cena thing, though, and here's the thing, I completely agree with you. John Cena has begun to impress me with some of his comedic stuff. Of course, in Trainwreck, in Sisters, that last little minute he's in Daddy's Home, or right.
That was so
Daddy's
funny.
Home. And of course, he's got a slightly bigger role now in Daddy's Home 2. The Christmas one that's coming out here next week. So I'm glad to see that. But I haven't seen anything from him yet to tell me this guy can carry a movie. You can put a movie on his considerably large shoulders. I mean, he's great to come in as a spot gag here and there, and he's got some pretty decent comedic chops. He seems to be pretty fearless. He doesn't mind making fun of himself. He's got that new comedy coming out called C Block or something like that. It's Cock Block, but basically it's where he plays a parent. He plays a parent, and he gets together with a couple of other parents whose kids are going to their high school prom, and they're afraid they're all going to lose their virginity that night. These parents are on a mission to stop their kids from losing their virginity on that night, and that looks funny. But until I see it, and get a sense of, can he be a focal point of a movie?
Right.
I just did not feel comfortable with the idea of him being Shazam, even though as a former wrestling fan, to see The Rock versus John Cena on screen would have been kind of fun and funny at the same time. But I'm super thrilled. Like, I mentioned this in my video too, that if what they're really going for, and if you watch Chuck, you'll see what I mean. If you get what they're going for, and the director's already said that, hey, this is going to be the most comedic DC film we've had so far, and it's going to be this child, Billy Batson, now suddenly in the body of a man with the powers of Superman, basically. Zach Levi can play that. I believe he can play like the astonishment and wonder and the naivete of a young child trapped in this man's body. I think he's going to do a great job, so I'm really excited about that. All right, with that out of the way, time for us to talk about some TV stuff before I go to your guys' live questions. And the first thing we're going to talk about today, the first show, is this week's episode of Arrow. Now, we had, what's his name? Michael Edmonds? Is that the guy's name who used to be on Lost? I can't remember the actor's name.
Yeah.
He playing Caden James. He's now apparently a big significant bad guy for the show. And he popped up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this guy. And what was that other show he had? Was it something suspect? Not unusual.
Is it
Person of Interest? That's it. Which I only watched a couple of episodes of it, but was a long-running, very popular TV show. I think he plays a great creepy guy. And you know what? Between last week's episode of Arrow, which I thought was the best of the week from all the superhero shows last week, I thought this week's was really good too. They still have Oliver out of the Green Arrow. Honestly, I don't see Oliver not being the Green Arrow for more than another 3 episodes. He's got it. He's going to be back sooner or later.
I'm wondering how long that'll last.
But you know what? The way they're handling the relationship with him and Felicity, thank you. Olicity, as the people like to call it. I think they're taking another run at Olicity, and I've always liked Olicity, to be honest with you, but it feels a little bit better pace now. Having Caden James as your new villain, him working with the evil Laura Lance, and I much prefer her in this kind of a role than the Laura Lance character they gave her in season 3. I got to tell you, I liked this week's episode. What did you think?
I agree. I quite like this week's episode as well. I've had a lot of ups and downs with the show of Arrow.
Me too.
In season 3, 4, even 5-ish, the only reason I hung around is because my wife is like the biggest Stephen Amell fan and she loves the show. But I agree with you. I think this season has been better, and I actually kind of like seeing Diggle as the Green Arrow. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about that. And one little thing, I like the little intro when they show the arrow symbol and then all the other symbols of the other characters right behind it. I think that's kind of cool.
Yep, that's a new thing they started.
It's a team show. Right, I think that's cool. And I like the dynamic between Felicity and Oliver. Now she's the one doing all of those reckless things, not communicating to her team members. And so the roles have switched. And I think that in this week's episode, they did a good job covering that. So overall, I actually think it's probably the best episode of the season thus far. And you're right, the character from Lost, that actor, I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
I think it's Michael Edmonds, but I could be wrong. It's Michael something.
Right. So I was a huge Lost fan, and he was one of my favorite characters because he was kind of eerie and you weren't really sure about him, kind of like a wormy feeling, but you knew he was really intelligent. And so that's perfect for a villainous character, right? And when he popped up on screen, that caught me completely off guard. I was like, oh, I got excited,
I did too.
I thought it was a good episode.
All right, so let's move on now to the next television series we're going to talk about. I'm going to tell you right now, the next television episode we're talking about is the winner of this week's Best of the Week, and that is this week's episode of The Flash. Yes. And this week's episode of The Flash, which I thought, you know what? I was very vocal. I haven't been thrilled with this season of The Flash so far. I have not been thrilled with it. I mean, I love The Flash. I love this show, but I have not been thrilled with the season so far. And then the opening scene is brilliant when you've got Vibe in there with his girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. And then out of nowhere comes Danny Trejo, and they end the scene with him revealing that Vibe's girlfriend is his daughter. And I just remember, I just said out loud, just said, oh shit, out loud. I just said it out loud. And I laughed and I enjoyed that. The way, and if you told me they're going to try to bring a Plastic Man type of character into the show, I would have said that's dumb. But the way they use that character And I love it when these shows will bring real tough, there's no black and white answer questions to the table that Barry has to ask himself. He's like, he turned in a dirty cop, but was he really dirty? Was what he was doing all that different from what I've been doing as the Flash this whole time? Did I actually ruin this guy's life? And this guy who is now a good cop is now kind of broken, and now he's kind of shady because of the experience he went through. There's a redemption arc in there all the same time. While this side story of Cisco and what did he call himself? Not Reaper. He called Breacher. And Breacher. And that side story going all on at the same time. I loved it. And that final little conversation between him, Danny Trejo, and Cisco, when he's like, I respect you, you fight for your friends, blah, 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 but I still hate you. I loved it. I ate it up. And for that reason, it is easily my favorite episode of the season so far. And to me, it wins this week's best of the week as far as superhero episodes go. But anyway, your thoughts on this week's episode of The Flash?
Man, I could not agree more with you. I was a little bit bummed about last week's episode. I don't think I disliked it quite as much as you did, but I thought that was definitely one of the weakest villains they've ever had. And then for them to introduce this Plastic Man character, it was done so well. Like the scene when he gets punched in the face and his face just absorbs it, that was awesome.
It looked amazing. The visual effect of it, I mean, it wasn't quite movie quality, but it was damn good for TV quality.
Completely. I thought it was awesome. Even just when Barry and the detective are walking past and they're like, man, that guy's horrible. He hasn't changed. And he's dangling from the top of the building. His arms are it was a really funny episode. And oh my gosh, when Danny Trejo busts in at the beginning of the episode, I laughed out loud. I thought he was going to be like, I'm Machete from space. You know, I couldn't even handle it.
Space.
I was just laughing so hard. And that was such a cool dynamic, you know, that being her father and Cisco trying to prove himself and figure himself out. And, I like all those dynamics. And I'm happy that they introduced that Plastic Man. I hope we get more of him because I really enjoyed his character. Overall, as you said, easily the best episode of the season. I really, really quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I think they made it clear with Barry offering to train him or bring him in. I don't know that he's going to be on every single episode. Look, they clearly didn't know what to do with Wally West. Ever since they brought him on the show, I've always kind of felt like he's there, but they don't know what to do with him. He's not necessarily a bad character the way they've developed him, that there's just nothing for him to do. And I feel like they took him off the show, at least for a while, for a beat, so they can kind of figure out what do we need to do. But we need another hero in there that's not a speedster. So now we've got their version of Plastic Man. And I don't know. Let's see how all that works out. All right. I'm going to just quickly rip through here a number of the other episodes that were on this week. Gotta say, big fan of this week's episode of Gotham. What they have been doing recently with Professor Pig, PYG, with the whole a dude who's killing dirty cops and like doing something really creepy. Almost saw like putting severed and dead pig heads on their heads while they're doing it, and the reasons that he's doing it and his connection with Jim Gordon. Also, I'm loving everything little daughter Falcone and her manipulation of Penguin. I like the stuff that's going on with Barbara and Selena. That's all good. Look, I think it just all coalesced. And I watched this week's episode of Gotham before I watched The Flash. And I watched this week's Gotham and I thought, this is our best of the week. And then I saw The Flash and The Flash took that over for me. Right. So this week's episode of Gotham, big thumbs up from me for that. Let's talk about an episode that you actually saw a little bit of, which was this week's episode of Supergirl, which was a very different kind of episode of television. It revolved around a religious cult that clearly something we saw a little bit of a glimpse of in Batman versus Superman, which was, obviously you have this alien from another world with these powers of flight, invulnerability, strength. You see them as a god. There are people who look at Supergirl as a god.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there was a really, I caught the tail end of the episode, and I like that sequence when she looked at the guy and she said, "I'm not the god you thought I was." I think that's what she said, and that's something that's almost like a deep, profound statement that I don't think, and I haven't watched a whole lot of Supergirl, but from what I've seen, I don't think that they've really delved into those deeper kind of thoughts. And I thought that was pretty impactful, and it made me want to watch more of Supergirl. So.
For me, it was here's what I thought. I applaud them for going for that theme, like a religious cult that's based on her, because that's actually not that big of a stretch to think. So I really applaud them for the theme. I did think they could have executed it a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And just the fact that she walks in as Kara Danvers in her, mild-mannered reporter with her glasses on, and he just looks at her and goes, "Those eyes. You're Supergirl." It's like, oh, come on. You can't just start letting civilians recognize the heroes through the magic glasses, or else everybody's going to know who Clark Kent is. So I think that was a mistake. Not a bad episode, but I think last week's episode of Supergirl was a bit stronger. I would have liked to have seen a little bit them kind of hammer on that whole religious theme a little bit, because there was some really good stuff they could have done. And I did like the way they handled the religious themes a little bit. I just think the conflict that Supergirl has with them could have been played out a little bit better, but I applaud them for the effort. So that was good. Let's move on to one of my new favorites, which is the Fox's The Gifted, which, look, they hyped up The Gifted a whole bunch at Comic-Con this year. And I'll be honest with you, I looked at it and I'm like, I could take or leave this, but I have been very impressed with this show. It hasn't started off as like one of the 10 greatest television series of all time, nothing like that, but they're really hammering on the whole social justice aspect of it, the civil rights aspect of it, the what do you do when you have a segment of people that are just persecuted for who they are and how they're born. Of course, I've mentioned this before, Jamie Chung, who you can see here, who of course plays Blink. She is Anne's sorority sister. So Anne and her actually go way back. So I'm a little bit biased, but I have really enjoyed this show. I thought this week's episode was another strong inclusion. You have Blink, who now realizes that her memories have been messed with, and there was a nice little bit of conflict there. They didn't overblow the conflict, but they played it out very nicely. You've got this Sentinel Services agent now, who they messed with his memories of his dead daughter, and you just feel he's the villain, and you just feel so bad for him with that happen. Good action, decent visual effects, playing on the mythology of the X-Men. I think that's done pretty well. So look, let me just jump quickly to the last show I want to talk about today, which is this week's episode of Legends of Tomorrow. Again, another fairly weak episode from Legends of Tomorrow. They brought in the Dominators again, and the Dominators were an interesting story point for the big crossover event last year. But oh my God, look, we understand it's television budgets. You can't do great visual effects. Then don't do things that require great visual effects. And having this CGI Dominator honestly looked like something from an early 90s television series. The whole young Ray Palmer thing didn't quite work. This season continues to be a disappointment for me. Now, Flash was a disappointment to me as well until this week's episode. Yeah. I'm hoping Legends of Tomorrow can deliver an episode very soon that is like this week's episode of The Flash that just gets the whole season right back on track. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm almost getting ready to ditch on this show.
So do you think then that Legends of Tomorrow needs to bring in a new character or a new villain that kind of re-sparks the energy for the show? Because I think that's kind of what Flash did a little bit with this past episode, was bringing in Plastic Man and then also bringing in Machete.
Danny Trejo.
That got us right. That got us excited. In what otherwise was just kind of a so-so season.
Yeah, you know what? They've been trying to bring in some new characters. They brought in one or two new characters. It's just that their story seems to be kind of flat. Now, one of the things it's definitely the writing. It is absolutely the writing. Although I will say this, you're onto something with the characters, because one of the characters who worked best on this show was Wentworth Miller as Snart, who of course got started on Flash playing Captain Freeze. He's off the show now. They brought him back for a couple of episodes last season, which was great. They need Snart back. I don't know what they got to do to get him back, but they got to get him back.
Yeah, that was one of the only reasons why I considered watching the show, was because his Captain Freeze character from seeing him in Flash, I thought was really interesting. Maybe I'll check that out.
All right, guys. Well, listen, Cody now has to split. We, of course, pre-recorded this segment. He's got to go back to training because he's an Olympian. So he's got things. He's got to go back to the pool. But listen, thank you so much, Cody, for joining me. I want to have you back on again. But just while I got you right here, tell people where other people can find you online. Where can people find you?
Thank you so much for having me. This is a blast. I'm a big fan of all the content you push out there. You guys can find me on Instagram and Twitter, just like @Cody Miller. And then I also recently started a YouTube channel, Cody Miller Adventures. I've got a couple of videos up. up. More coming. Certainly some featuring me talking about movies because I'm a big movie fan, a big comic book fan. So yeah, just check me out there. Thank you, John.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize, go check out his YouTube channel. His videos are, you want to get immersed into his life, and it's just, especially the first video to me, I was just like, holy crap, because I was afraid, I'll be honest, because you're a friend of mine, I was afraid it was going to suck, and I would have to tell you, I'd either have to tell you that it sucked, or go, oh yeah, it's a really interesting YouTube channel. But I watched that first video, I'm like, oh my God, this is like great, and I was so engaged with it. So everybody, make sure you check that out. So with that out of the way, thanks, Cody, and we'll have you back on again.
Thank you so much, man. Would love to.
All right, and we're back. Thanks, guys, and thank you to Cody Miller for taking time to join me. He's such a fun guy. He's got an amazing wife, Allie, too, and hopefully I'll have a chance for you guys to meet and talk to him a little bit more as time goes on. So, hey, I've been mentioning in the live chat board, we're going to get around now to your guys' live questions on Twitter, and we're going to start the live questions. Where are they? There they are here. We're going to start the live questions with this one. This one comes to us from CJ Pats Fan 5, who writes, I am also a Pats fan. Where would Loki rank with all the superhero movie villains? Loki ranks pretty high. Loki ranks high. He's not like on the same level as, say, Heath Ledger's Joker, per se, but he might be like number 2 under that, to me, at any rate. I thought Michael Shannon's Zod in Man of Steel was also a really great villain. I think I'd probably still have Loki, but because Loki has more dimension to him. Like, he's deadly and serious and villainous and world dominating, but he's also got a big humor stretch to him. There's multiple dimensions to him. He's conflicted. He's good. He's bad. There's a lot of things going on in the character. So I think pretty high. I would put him in that upper echelon of comic book movie villains, but on his own level is the Heath Ledger Joker. And I still think that's like the gold standard for comic book movie villains is that. But I think Loki is right under that. I think he's quite far up there as well. All right, let's see. This one comes to us from David Hawk Actor, who writes, John, this week on Flash with the big reveal of West being a dad again, and all I thought was, where's Wally? I mean, that's the thing. You know, Wally left like without any fanfare. With a quiet whimper, Wally just goes, like, out of nowhere at the end of the episode, hey guys, I'm leaving. And they go, oh, and they'll give him a hug and then he left. And that's it. They've had no idea what to do with that character. And I like the character, but if you watch him for the last season and a half or so, you just realize they just don't know what to do with him. Like, they've got this Wally West character, yet another speedster. And it's like, well, what do we do with them? And they've never seemed to have an idea about what they wanted to do with them. So I think it was a wise decision to take him off the show for a little while they, the writers, kind of get their act together and figure out what they want to do with him. Let's see. This one. Right here. This one comes to us from Cullen Prime, who writes, John, what do you think about people saying that the Barry that came out of the Speed Force isn't really him? Does it make sense to you? Well, if you had said that to me like 5 minutes or 10 minutes into the first episode of this season, I would say that's possible, but he seems pretty much like Barry now, but it's possible. It's totally possible. Look, the Flash has taken liberties of throwing us curveballs like that before, so that's absolutely possible. All right, next question comes to us from ManuSin399997303, writes, John, will Green Arrow get his solo movie? Not anytime soon. Not anytime soon. They've got too many other things on the burner that they're trying to do. So will they eventually do one? I got to imagine at some point we're going to get a Green Arrow solo movie. It won't be the Green Arrow from the TV series, obviously. I got to imagine at some point we'll get a Green Arrow movie. I'm just saying, don't hold your breath. It's not going to be anytime soon. Let's see. Where do we go? Why can't I get this to come up? Okay, here we go. This one comes to us from Vlad K82, writes, John, off the top of your head, what other DC character do you think would be a nice addition to the Arrowverse and why? What other, honestly, and this would be tricky because they're trying to keep some sense of separation from Batman. They don't want Batman in the TV show. I mean, they'll mention Bruce Wayne here and there. They'll drop a mention or you'll see Bruce on somebody's speed dial or something like that. Yeah. But honestly, I think Azrael would fit in real nicely from the Nightfall series. I think Jean-Paul, I think he would fit in really well in that world. Now, I know they already took a crack at a character they called Azrael in Gotham, and that was an abomination. That character was not Azrael at all. So I think he would probably fit in pretty well. They'd have to do some dancing around what his origin stories are. You have to obviously fidge a little bit and retcon his origin story a bit to make that work without him being connected to Batman per se. But I think that would be a character that would work pretty well. Let's see. This one comes to us from Very Anonymous, who writes, why didn't you put Lucifer as a part of the superhero? Because Lucifer's not a superhero show. But John, it was a comic book. I know it was a comic book, but just because something was in the printed medium of a comic book, look, obviously we all know what we're talking about. When we say comic book shows and comic book stuff, we're talking about Superman and Batman and, the Marvel characters. Like, we know what we're talking about. Lucifer is one of my 3 favorite current shows running on television. I love Lucifer. I love Lucifer more than you do. Believe me that. Believe that. I do. I love Lucifer. But it's despite whatever its technicality, it came from a printed comic book. So despite that, it's not a comic book show. It's not a superhero show. So that's why I don't put it on my list. But I would love to talk about Lucifer. It's just that it doesn't fit in here at all because it doesn't work. Okay. Let's see here. Where are we? Here we go. This one. Why Ty Sucks writes, John, you said a bit before that 117 million opening for Homecoming is not great, but obviously good. Yet you think Justice League with 120 million is great. Well, no, okay, look, because I'm talking in like when I said 117 million, isn't great. I'm talking in terms of the biggest openings of all time. It's not a $200 million opening, but by all means, for a Spider-Man movie, in its 3rd incarnation, its 2nd reboot in like 10 years, coming off of a poorly received The Amazing Spider-Man 2, 117 million is great for it. I just said like $117 million isn't like a mind-blowing opening weekend because to us, you got to fall in that. You can need a mega blockbuster to fall in the range of 150 to 200 million for that. But for Spider-Man Homecoming, 117 million was great. I think if Justice League hits 120 million or higher, I think that's great for it as well. It doesn't come into the same category as talking about the opening weekend of Jurassic World or the opening weekend of Avengers or the opening weekend of Star Wars, The Force Awakens. No, but for it, I think it would be a fabulous opening weekend. As $117 million for Spider-Man Homecoming, 3rd incarnation, 2nd reboot, coming off a poorly received movie, 117 million, I think was a great number for it. Just in terms of the all-time greats, not in that category, but for it, a very, very solid, great thing. That's what I meant by that. But thank you for asking. It's a good question. Let's see. This next one comes to us from NJ Vidaldi, who writes, John, what % chance do you think that Green Lantern will be in Justice League? Do you think we will get a tease or another villain? You know what? I think there's a better chance than people are giving it that Green Lantern pops up in this. Look, all the signs kind of point to it. Henry Cavill kind of was teasing Green Lantern a little bit in some of his social media stuff. Nothing definitive at all. I will go as high as a very legitimate 15% chance. That's legit. That's a legit chance. You know what? Scrap that. I'm going to go up as 20. I'm going to go up to 20%. So I think, look, if I had to put money on it, no, I wouldn't put money on Green Lantern being there. But it's a high enough % chance that don't fall out of your seat and choke on your popcorn if Green Lantern pops up. I think there's a solid 20% chance that becomes a reality in this particular movie. But let's see how that all turns out. Okay, what else do we got here? You guys are like throwing in stuff fast and furious here. This one comes to us from Movie Buff 100 writes, John, will Justice League be more of a Whedon film than a Snyder film? I honestly think it's going to be, look, there was an earlier quote, obviously before the Warner Brothers PR people got to Ben Affleck, but before they got to him to Ben Affleck with the script he was supposed to follow, Ben Affleck gave a quote, and you can find it online, where he talked about Justice League is truly a film with 2 directors and 2 guys' visions, and they're both brilliant. They both have their villains. Look, I've been saying for a long time, you take a movie. Could it suck? Sure, it could suck. Anything could suck. But you take a movie with the visual storytelling talents of a Zack Snyder, and now add on top of that The dialogue, and character skills that Joss Whedon brings to it, the director of the two most successful comic book movies of all time, and you put those things together, you have the potential for something really special. Now, I'm not saying Justice League is going to be top 5 greatest comic book movies of all time. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying the potential is there for something very, very special. I have a feeling that what we are going to see is exactly what Ben Affleck said. I think what we're going to see is going to be a real nice hybrid of Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon, and I think the movie's going to be all the better for it. And I could be dead wrong. I could be absolutely dead wrong about that. Absolutely. I'm just speculating here, just like you. But that's my speculation. That's what I'm thinking about. Let's see. This one. John Campea, any word on the Doc Savage movie? Yeah, like, wasn't The Rock? Wasn't it announced a while ago that The Rock is supposed to be Doc Savage? I know the producer, of the guy who's supposed to be the producer of it. You know what? I will give him a phone call when we're done the show and say, hey, what's going on with Doc Savage? Is this thing still happening or not? Let's see. Next one. John, why do you think Harley Quinn hasn't appeared in Gotham yet? I think because Harley Quinn was clearly the character that worked the best in Suicide Squad. And I think they're going to protect that character. I don't think they're going to let that... Now remember, there was an episode of Arrow where there was their version of Suicide Squad. And as they're going through the prisons, there was Harley Quinzel's cell. And you just heard her voice for a second, right? So clearly that was just a little Easter egg. But really, for all intents and purposes, Harley Quinn has not showed up in the CW universe yet. Or in Gotham, for that matter. I have a feeling they're going to be quite protective of that character. So I have a feeling we're not going to see Harley Quinn. Could be wrong about that. I think it's 50-50, but if I had to put money on it, I would bet that we're probably not going to see Harley Quinn on television, either the CW universe or on Gotham. Let's see. Man of Steel 79 said, John, what happened to the days where moviegoers just went in with an open mind instead of ultimately relying on others' opinions? No. Don't do that. Don't do that. That is an excuse. Nobody relies on other people's opinions. Enough with that BS, okay? Enough with that BS. Look, always, like, movie critics used to be, like, considered high-level journalists before. Like, nobody went to a movie before watching Siskel and Ebert. There was a day that nobody went to the movies without watching Siskel and Ebert first, or reading what the New York Times had to say about it, or whatever. Look, going to the movies, like, okay, if you're going to go on that, here's what I would say to friends of mine, okay? And you and I, Man of Steel 79, we're friends. We're both film fans together. We're on the same team, okay? We have a different point of view on this issue, but we're on the same team. So I say this to you in brotherly love. Look, if you're going to say nobody should listen to critics, you should just go into a movie with an open mind. Okay, fine. Then that means you should go watch every single movie. Look, going to the movies, I've always said this, I still believe this, is an investment. You are spending time. You got to get ready. You drive over to the movie theater. You find parking, get into the theater, watch the trailers, watch the movie, drive back home. You're committing 3-4 hours of your evening. So you're investing time. You're investing money. You're buying your movie tickets. The average movie ticket is around $10 in the United States. So if you're buying You for a Date, there's $20. Figure spending another $20 on concessions. There's about $40 you're dropping on the evening. If you are not somebody who looks into something before making an investment, that makes you naive. And you're not naive. I'm not naive. If I'm going to go, look, everything right from, I swear to God, even like seriously, SD cards, okay? SD cards. I research my SD cards. But John, an SD card like this one's only about $20. I know. But before I go out and buy an SD card, I hop online. I look for other people who have experienced using that SD card, and I see what they have to say, because I'm getting ready to invest some money and time into using this thing, and I'm going to rely on this. Now, you could say to me, John, don't rely on what other people say. Just go and buy it and experience it for yourself. No, it is completely rational and reasonable that you would hop online. Now, also, if you're smart, you don't just go online, and I didn't go online just read what one person said about the SD cards. And I wish I could tell you I was joking. I'm not. This is how anal I am about this. I literally read about 15 different thoughts on the SD card before I went out and got it. People shouldn't just listen to one voice and hear one person's opinion. Oh, one person said it's bad, therefore I'm not going to check. No. See what the consensus is. There are going to be some people that like it, some people that don't, but listen to a wide variety and get a sense of the consensus, but also hear it, because you could listen to somebody give a bad review of a movie and listen, if they're a good critic, they cannot like a movie and explain why they liked it and why they didn't. And that might still go to you, okay, they didn't like it, but the way they described the movie, it does sound like something I would like. That's what a good critic can do. I actually hope for the movies that I give negative reviews to, I hope there are some people out there who listen to me give a negative review, but hopefully I'm a good enough film critic that when I explain why I didn't like it and the good things about it, that somebody would go, okay, so John didn't like it, but the way he's describing it, it does sound like something I would enjoy, and give it a shot. This is all an excuse. It's all an excuse by people who are desperate to have people not listen to critics because the critics don't like a movie that they like. You should go out, give an ear to critics, see what other people are saying, just like you would go and research a car before you buy it, that you would research a tablet before you buy it, that you would research a laptop before you buy it, that you would research SD cards before you buy them. You're investing something into it. You should do your homework a little bit. That's called being an informed consumer, and movie fans should be informed consumers. So listen very carefully and then make a decision. Well, it sounds good or it doesn't sound good, whatever. I'm going to give it a shot, or I'm not going to give it a shot. But you should absolutely invest a little bit of time into researching something before investing an evening of your life and dropping some of your hard-earned money on it. I just think that's rational to do. But anyway, that's just my thought. Let's see. This one comes to us from NJ Vidvaldi, who writes, John, how many more seasons until we see a true Batman in Gotham? And would we get a year one adaptation? Okay, look, if they are to be believed, the producers of Gotham have said, and the execs of Fox said, you're never going to see Batman. You're never going to see Batman in Gotham. So I think that's a directive that Warner Brothers on high gave both Fox and gave the producers of the show. Okay, we can do this. We're going to give you lots of leeway. You can't have Batman. And now you see the producers trying to cheat and trying to find loopholes. They got little teenage Bruce Wayne running around on rooftops with a black mask on, which that's the one part about Gotham I don't like right now. But other than that, I think Gotham is pretty strong at the moment. Anyway, so let's go on to this. This one comes to us from Manu Sin and writes, John, will Justice League cross domestic 600? No. Justice League will not cross 600 million domestically. Don't be silly. No. And nor does it have to be. Why would we set that kind of a ridiculous number? Look, Justice League domestically hits $350 million. That's a win. That's a big win. You hit $350 million, like domestically, you're on pace to hit $800, $900 million internationally. Is it going to hit 600 million domestically? No, no chance. I just don't see that happen. It'd be great if it does. I mean, look, I'm saying no chance in hell. But I mean, if Justice League comes out and it's like the number one critically rated film of the year and the critics rave about it and the magazines rave about it and all the websites rave about it and word of mouth starts going positive, anything is possible. But if Justice League was that good, Warner Brothers would have already lifted the review embargo. I know what I said about Thor, and absolutely, but I mean, if Justice League was going to be like the best critically rated movie of the year, they would have lifted the review embargo for Justice League last week, or 2 weeks ago even. So I just can't see it hitting no comic book movie is going to hit 600 million domestic. I mean, it's just not this year. I think what Wonder Woman did is crazy good, and it only hit about 400. Let me pull this up. Wonder Woman box office. It came in at, domestically speaking at any rate, Wonder Woman box office came in at, 412. To expect Justice League to come out and do like 50% better than Wonder Woman did, 50 full percent better domestically than Wonder Woman did, I don't think that's realistic or rational. I just don't think that's a good way of looking at it. Let's see. This one comes to us from CERN Comic, who writes, and I can't see your whole tweet. Oh, that's unfortunate. Hello, John. Big fan of yours. When you were with Collider, I still am. My question is it? And then your question disappeared. It fell off. Sorry about that, man. Let's see. This one comes to us from John. Will Man of Steel gross 1 billion worldwide? Man of Steel came out like 4 years ago, so I'm not quite sure what it is we're talking about. Let's see. Next one comes to us from Manu Sin. Will Suicide Squad 2 cross 800? How can we say? We haven't even seen a trailer. We have no idea what it's about. We don't even know when it's coming out at this point. So let's put it this way. It'll have to do something special because a lot of people who went out to see Suicide Squad 1 didn't like it. That's just reality. I gave it a positive review. I liked it, but a lot of people who saw Suicide Squad did not like it. So that means there's going to be a number of those people that do not come back for the second time around. So who can say we're still a long ways away? It would be, I think it might be a stretch to expect Suicide Squad to hit 2 or 800 billion. We'll have to just wait and see. Let's see. This one comes to us from Man of Steel 79, who was asking about the critics. I understand what you're saying, but I think people only care about what critics say. No, they don't. I know hundreds of people who are all movie fans, and I don't know a single one of them that only care what critics say. I don't know a single one. And I think if you claim that you do, what you're really saying is, I had this debate with this guy online, and clearly all he cares about is what the critics say. No. Now you're ascribing your own rationale onto what other people think to justify your own narrative. Be careful of that, dude. Be careful of that, my brother, my fellow film fan. Be careful about doing stuff like that. All I know is I know hundreds of people who are film fans, and none of them only care about what critics say. I've never met that, and if any of them did, I would slap them on the wrist and say, should you care about what critics say? Yes. Should it be the only thing you listen to? Absolutely not. That's ridiculous. That's irrational. Let's see. Last question of the day. And this one comes to us from Victor Sensei, who writes, John, have you seen Justice League yet? No, they showed it to a small group of people the other night. The vast majority of critics have not yet seen it. I have also not yet seen it. I'm supposed to see it later this week. So once I see it, I will let you know that I've seen it, and then we will go from there. But as of right now, no, I have not seen it yet. I'm supposed to see it a little bit later. So anyway, guys, that will do it for this installment, the second episode of The Weekly Hero, talking about nothing but comic book stuff. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, special thanks to my guest. Very busy dude, Olympic gold medalist, still competing, probably going to be in the next Olympics as well. Cody Miller for being on here. Thanks for sharing all of his expertise and insight with us. And special thanks to you guys who are watching live. Makes this thing a lot of fun. And hey guys, make sure you click the thumbs up button, and also make sure you follow me on social media, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and keep up to date. Now, I'm going to let you guys know this too. In about an hour from now, I'm going to be putting up a new video, and it's a spoiler-filled video, so be careful. But it's going to be a video on why Thor Ragnarok is the darkest and highest stakes movie the MCU has ever had, and possibly the darkest and highest stakes comic book movie there has ever been. Despite what everybody else is saying about the fun and the comedy in it, which is all great, I still contend it is the darkest, maybe even of all comic book films, but I'll stick to MCU film there's ever been, and I'll explain why in that video, and I'll give you guys a chance to give your response as well. So keep an eye open for that. That's going to be online in about 1 hour. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today. Thank you so much for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.